What's up, guys? Welcome back to my live stream. If you are new to my channel, I'm Jero Serrano and I develop game engines and I share everything that I know about game engine development here on my YouTube channel. So if you are new to my channel and you want to develop a game engine, subscribe to my channel because you are going to learn something. That's basically my goal, to share everything that I know about game engine development with you guys. So what do I have planned for you guys today? Before I do that, actually, let me check that everything is going well in the stream. Okay, everything looks good. Cool. So, as you know, for the past 3-4 weeks now, I've been actually implementing the GUI for my game engine. I've been using ImGui for that, and I have come to the point that I basically want everything that I was hoping from ImGui. I have implemented basically the features that I wanted to implement. And I'm at that point that I want to move on and start thinking what else do I want to add to the engine. I'm going to be showing you what I've done as of now, and then I'm going to share with you some ideas that I have for my game engine. But before I do that, I know that, if you are new to this channel, you may be wondering, okay, Harold, how do I start developing my game engine? What resources do you have that can help me develop my game engine? Well, I'm going to share with you some resources, but again, do not forget to subscribe to my channel and click the like button also. And also feel free to ask any questions on the chat, because that's the whole purpose of this live stream, to answer your questions. Yes, I do some light coding, but the main purpose is for me to help you and share everything that I know, with you. And also I'm going to ask you to join my Discord server. We have about 561 members now. All of us, learning how to develop our own game engines. We are a very helpful community. So feel free to join my Discord server. That is, the link to my server is in the description of this video. So join us and ask any questions that you may have. So let me take you to my website, so I can share with you some of the resources that are available for you, resources that I have compiled for you. All right, so let me go and share my screen, and just for the heck of it, let me just make sure that everything is being here. It is. Okay, cool. Now what you are seeing here is my website, jeroserrano.com. This is the link to my previous live stream. I'm going to share with you two things, all right? Number one, you may be wondering, what books should I read to develop a game engine? Well, if you go to the navigation bar here on my website and click on books, that will take you to this article where I basically have listed all of the books that I use to develop my own game engine. But more importantly, the first section of this article actually talks about the books that will help you get started, right? I list the books so that you will be able to develop your own mathematics engine, then for your rendering engine, and then your physics engines. These 6 books are, a must, books that I really should really read. They are amazing books. Now, on top of that, I also share with you all of the books that I ended up reading to develop my own game engine. You may not know this if you are new, but I it took me about 5 years to develop my game engine, and I've been working on it for about 8 years now, almost close to 9 years actually. So it is a very long project, and you need to understand that developing a game engine is not something that you can complete or develop in a week. It's not going to happen. You can develop one, but I wouldn't call that a game engine, honestly. I'm sorry, but that's not a game engine. A game engine is a very complex architecture, and that's going to take you a lot of work and a lot of time. So, keep that in mind. But these are the books that will help you get started. Right now, you may be wondering, okay, what are the steps to develop my own game engine? Well, I also was kind enough to share with you the steps on how you can become an indie game engine developer. So I did a video. This video will actually help you understand the steps. And if you come over here and you click on this link, how to become a game engine developer, that will basically take you through the whole steps that you need to do, right? Learn linear algebra, learn C++, develop a mathematics engine, then learn OpenGL, stuff like that. These are the steps that I took to develop my own game engine. Many other people, may say otherwise, right? But these are the steps that I took and that helped me develop my game engine. So, feel free to go to my website, check out, these articles because they're very helpful. So, having said that, let's talk about my game engine. The name of my game engine is the Untold Engine. And it is basically a 3D game engine for macOS devices, right? I use the Metal API, which is basically the graphics library for Apple devices, and I wrote it using C++. As of now, the game engine has most of the components that I wanted to implement, but there was two components that were missing, and one of them were integrating a scripting language into the game engine, which I ended up using the scripting language called Gravity, which I should share with you because it's a really nice language actually. So if you go to gravity-lang, it will take you to that page. And basically Gravity is an embeddable programming language. The cool thing about this language is that it's very easy to integrate into your game engine. Very easy to do. You'll be surprised. Number two is that it looks a lot like Swift. So in my case, since I'm targeting Apple developers, the fact that most Apple developers have used Swift and the syntax of Gravity is very like Swift, I don't foresee any issues, right? Whenever someone wants to start using my game engine with a scripting language. And the third reason why I recommend you to use Gravity is because the maintainer is a very helpful guy. He will respond to your questions, to your issue right away. And that is something that I really like, right? Whenever you are selecting a framework from GitHub, the main things that you need to look for are, number one, how active is the repo, right? Is it being actively maintained, right? You do not want a repo that has not been maintained for the last, 7 years, right? And number two, documentation, which this language has a great documentation. And number three, how if the maintainer of the repo is very, I guess helpful, right? Those are the three things that I look for, and this guy Marco has been great on that. So I strongly recommend you to check it out. Now, you may have heard that the most popular scripting language is Lua, and that is correct. Lua is used by many game developers, and it is provided by many game engines, right, as part of the scripting language. Lua is great. I don't have no issues with that. My issue with that as a game engine developer is that if you want to bind the functions from your game engine, and let's say that you wrote your game engine using C++ and you want to bind those functions with Lua, the whole binding is a nightmare, insane nightmare, right? And I started doing that. I started doing the whole binding for Lua to test it out, and I stopped halfway because I could not take the whole paradigm that you have to follow. It was just too much for me. So I stopped, and finally, luckily, I knew about Gravity, so I ported it. Now, that was one of the components that I was missing. Now, the second component that was missing was I had not implemented a GUI for my game engine, right? And you may think, why in the world didn't you do that in the beginning? And my logic was very simple. I wanted to focus on the foundation of my game engine, like the core foundation of my game engine, which are the three main components: the mathematics engine, the rendering engine, and the physics engine, right? I wanted to focus on that. And once I had that, what I did, I expanded from these components and started building the camera system and particle system and stuff like that, and fixing some issues. And that took a long time to get working, right? And once I had all of this foundation, then I could focus on beautifying the game engine basically, because that's what basically a GUI does, right? Like the whole GUI is just to give nicer access for you to control some parameters for your entities, which you could easily do from your code. It's not ideal, it's not user friendly, but it's not like the end of the world. So um, I decided to add a ImGui, and now that is completed. So I'm going to show you the game engine right now. So let me close this and let me bring up my Xcode, because then I'm going to talk about some ideas that I have, and then I'm going to answer some questions related to game engine development. So if you have some questions, feel free to ask in the chat. I will answer them and hopefully guide you. And if I do not know the answer, someone in my Discord server will know, because I know they do know. They definitely know more about me, about game engine development. So I'm sure someone can help you. So let me bring up Xcode. Again, Xcode with the IDE that you use to write applications in Apple devices, right? So let me run this. So I'm going to run the engine, and what you're going to see is basically the ImGui, the UI, basically. And what I did recently, on Friday, I believe, or Saturday, I added an infinite grid, which is what you see right now. So for example, if I move the camera, you will see like the whole infinite grid and being rendered. All of this that you see here, if you're completely new to computer graphics or to game engine development, this is ImGui. This is provided by ImGui. It's very simple to use actually. So now I have the whole infinite grid. My next thing that I think I'm gonna implement in my game engine is to add an infinite skybox. That's the idea. You don't have to do that, but let me show you now. I also implemented serialization and deserialization, which allows you to save all of the entities of your scene into a file and then bring them back, load them back into the scene. So serialization means you're saving your entities into a file, and deserialization means reading it back from the file, right? So here you see actually all of the entities that I have implemented. Oh, not the entities, I'm sorry, like the whole ImGui that I have implemented, that grid. And then something else that I added that I integrated was to integrate the gizmo. And I really do not know what's the proper pronunciation for that word. I don't know if it's gizmo or gizmo or whatever. I do not know. But the whole point that with a gizmo, it allows you to rotate the characters and move them around easily, right? So that way you can set up your whole scene very nicely, and start playing with it, right? Obviously, I can keep adding more models from here. I needed to select that one. And then, keep doing stuff like that. So all of this looks cool. And this is basically what I have as of now in my game engine. Now comes the questions. Well, where do I take the game engine next, right? And I'm going to answer that question. But before I do that, I do want to share some experiences on the infinite grid that you see here. An article that I found that was very, very helpful to create that infinite grid, and also my experiences on using ImGui. Because if you're new, you may be wondering how do you get this right working. So for the grid that you see here, actually let me remove this entity, right? For the grid, right? There's this nice article that was shared in my Discord server, and that's why you need to join my Discord server, because people will share some amazing stuff there. So let me bring this up, and actually let me stop that because I wouldn't need to be running it. So I'm gonna share this article. It's called How to Make an Infinite Grid, and I'm gonna share it in the description of this video. And this article will basically show you how to do your grid, all right, your infinite grid. It is a very, very nice article, very, very well written, and the author Marie explains everything very well. There were I did do some modifications to this because, you know, um, I needed to do them because I understand where Marie's coming from, right? She's trying to teach you how to do an infinite grid. So there were some optimization issues that I needed to do on my part, which it says nothing about the article. She's trying to teach you how to do one. So she's like, basically ignoring optimization stuff. She's just focusing on teaching you this is how you do it. But I had to do some optimizations on my end to get everything working. Now, she talks about several transformations that you have to do, inverse transformations. And there's this other article that I recommend you to read because the diagram of this article will help you understand what she's doing here. If you do not understand the inverse transformations that she's doing, you may be lost. So, Ray Marchin, no, hold on. Mouse, that's how I remember. So this article right here, written by Anton, shows this particular diagram, which is very useful, right? He shows how you go from local space to world space and I space to club space and to device space. I recommend you to keep this in mind, and if possible, if you want to read it, read this whole transformations, because Marie here, she uses that. She goes from club space to I space to world space, and she does some inverse projections and some perspective divisions. And if you do not understand this, you may be like, what is she doing? Why is she doing that? Well, this is the key. This diagram is the key to that. All right. So that's how I did my infinite grid. Again, very simple. So do it, yeah, check it out. Now, let me share with you my experience with ImGui. ImGui is basically a framework that you can use to add UI, a user interface, into your application, such as a game engine. It is very simple to use, and obviously it's one of the most popular frameworks out there. So ImGui, GitHub. So let me go here. You just do ImGui GitHub, it will take you here. And this is where you can actually get the whole repo. Now, one thing that you need to understand is that for you to get this working, you need to connect the proper bindings depending on which graphics library you are using, right? For example, if you are using DirectX, right, you need to find the proper binding between ImGui and that DirectX. If you're using Metal, like in my case, I needed to do the proper binding between ImGui and Metal. I needed to get those files together, include those files into my game engine, and let me show you. So ImGui here, this folder, you will see how I ended up, adding some of the Metal files, and you need to add all of this before so that everything, starts to show up in your application, in your game engine. Now there's this nice article that I found. So let's see, binding. Come on, ImGui to OpenGL. Let me do that. Yeah, this one. An introduction to Dear ImGui library. This article is very helpful because it will show you how to get started and how to integrate Dear ImGui into your application. And in this instance, the author will use OpenGL as the graphics library that you have to bind to. And he shows you which files you needed to to use. Once you get that set, everything is very simple. So it's very simple to use. I do have some issues with it, but I'm not gonna complain because it works. All right. Now there's one particular file that I would not recommend you to remove at all, and the author of ImGui says the same thing. And don't remove this because it is a, a really cool file. It's called imguidemo.cpp, right? This file will basically show you examples on how to enable different widgets into your ImGui. So don't delete this file. Just leave it here because you're gonna make use of this quite often. Now, the only problem that I have with ImGui, honestly, is the fact that you have to use a lot of static variables throughout the whole, throughout the whole game engine, and that is something that I don't like, but I do understand why you have to do it. Let me bring up my pipeline actually. Where are you at? This is basically the rendering path for my ImGui, and you will see that I have to use several static variables. You just have to do that. Kind of annoying, but hey, but overall, it's nice, simple to use. Use it, and you can get this up and running really quick. So that is that. All right. So there's another thing that I want to share with you, and that is basically this. And I've been wanting to tell this to people, but I've been wondering if I should say it or not. But not saying it, but recommend people to do this, right? Should you start a blog or a YouTube channel, right? As a developer, should you do that? Now, in my opinion, having a blog or a YouTube channel where you share your knowledge with people can be very beneficial to your career, right? Because it is my opinion, right? My opinion only, that resumes, they don't cut it anymore. They do not make you stand out anymore, right? Even the fact that you probably went to an Ivy League school and have so many credentials and this and that doesn't make you stand out anymore, right? Because now it's people are now showing their portfolios online, right, or their repos on GitHub, or teaching people how to do stuff on YouTube, or sharing with people what they're working on, right? And that, in my opinion, has more power because I get to see what you're doing, right? If I read a resume, I just read what you're telling me, but if I read your blog and you have a read article, I will understand, or I will know that, hey, you really know your stuff, right? I'm not going to be questioning you because it seems that you really don't. Same thing for a YouTube channel, right? So in my opinion, you should, and I'm going to share this with you guys as well. It has been a great thing for me to actually have a blog and a YouTube channel. My blog, I started it way back in 2015. It initially had no visitors. I think it only had like 10 visitors a week, honestly, and 5 of those visits were from me. But it slowly gained tractions, and nowadays I'm getting over 11,000, 12,000 visits a month, which is good, right? So in a year I get like over 100,000 views. My YouTube channel is growing slowly, but it's growing. But I have been getting many attention from companies, right? For example, in the past year, I'll say that I had been offered like 4 contract jobs related to computer graphics. I had to turn them down because I'm very busy at that moment. I have had companies approach me for interviews, right? I've have had book companies, right? Like I think it's called Pact Publishing, I believe, but they contacted me already 3 times, right? The last time they wanted me to write a mathematics for game developers book, right? Again, I couldn't do it. I declined it because I don't have time during my day. But the point is this, right? By you starting a blog, a YouTube channel, you are going to get to be known in the whole world, and people are going to see that you know your stuff, and they're going to come, and the offers will be there for you, right? Which is great. So I strongly recommend you to do that. Start a blog and start sharing everything that you know about whatever type of development thing that you do, right? It's a computer graphics, it's a game development, right? It's a marketing, heck, it's a game marketing, right? Just share everything that you know, because sooner or later that will pay off, and companies will start looking for you and offering you, you know, opportunities. So I definitely would encourage you to do that. All right, so let's see. Now let's get to work and let's see what do we need to do. I actually want to share with you something else though. All right, so one of the issues that I have with my game engine is that my game engine does not have an entity, right? It does not. I am aware that my game engine does not know. I do not know why my game engine exists, right? Uh, right now, my game engine is a 3D game engine for Mac devices, Apple devices, right? But let's say I want to compete, right? And I have the goal of making my game engine big, which I do, right? Competing against Unity or Unreal is going to be, or even Godot, is going to be idiotic, right? Because I don't bring anything new to the table, right? Unity also can develop games for Macs, right? So I'm not really bringing anything to the table. So I am aware that my game engine lacks that why do I exist type of question, right? Why is it that I bring to the table that no other game engine brings to the table, right? If I want to make this big, I need to answer that question. What's the purpose of my game engine in this world, right? Why would anyone want to use my game engine? Like, what value do I provide users that they do not find in Unity or Unreal or Godot or any other game engine out there? So for a long time, I've been trying to answer that question, and I've been, testing things out, playing with things here and there. And I'm at that point, right, where, I need to make a decision, because it feels that I'm just adding features to my game engine with no purpose in mind, right? I do not want to keep adding more components if I do not know what I'm going to make of this, right? Most people, when they develop their game engine, especially for indie game engine developers, when they develop their game engines, they already have a game in mind that they want to develop with it, and they develop their own game engines because maybe Unity or Unreal does not provide a particular component that they want to create a particular effect, for example, right? And that's how they start with their game engines. I didn't start it that way. How I started my game engine was basically as an educational exercise. I literally one day just woke up and I told myself I'm gonna develop a game engine, and the whole purpose was for me to learn. And here I am, 8 years later. I have learned a lot, right? But now I need to make something out of this, right? That's what I want to do. So why am I saying this, right? Because aside from game engine development, the other thing that I really gets my attention is AI, is artificial intelligence, right? And lately on YouTube, I've seen several videos of Q learning, right? That is where entities learn to play, right? Um, by themselves, basically, right? Using deep reinforcement learning and Q learning and stuff like that. And I'm like, I've been very intrigued with that. I'm like, man, that is so cool. And I've been thinking, what if I, you know, make my game engine a sandbox for reinforcement learning experiments, such as Gym AI, right? Um, those things are really cool because you actually get to play with deep learning stuff, right? And neurons, networks, and stuff like that. So, guess what I did, right? I went on Amazon and I went bought this book, Deep Reinforcement Learning, and I've been reading it. It's quite interesting. I honestly thought that the math was going to be a little bit more complex, and it turns out that it's not that complex at all. Um, as of now, I don't think it's complex. But I'm learning that book because I don't know, but I'm gonna probably give this a test and play around with, let's add some deep learning into my game engine and let's see how that goes. And obviously, if I go that route, right, um, I have learned that the most popular language for deep learning is obviously Python. That's common, not common sense, but something that everybody knows. But I don't think you want to use deep learning in a game engine using Python. Python is way too slow, and so you want to use like C++, like a framework for deep learning that uses C++. And I think that you may also want to use the GPU. I'm not so certain about that, but my gut tells me you want to use the GPU for that. And I still have to do a lot more research, but I also know that Apple provides Core ML, and that's something that if Core ML can provide some deep learning stuff and reinforcement learning APIs, then hey, I'm doing this, even for testing. So I'm thinking I'm gonna be doing that. That's what I'm gonna do. And actually, if I show you this. If you go here to my repo, right, most of the issues that you see are not big issues, not big bugs at all. My plan was to fix them, and I want to fix them all, but I want to find a new purpose for my game engine, and I think I'm losing that. I need to gain that back, or else it's, it's gonna feel like if I'm just you know blindfolded and going and nowhere, right? So that's something I want to do. Now, something that I have several questions here that I usually like to have before I do live streams, but something that I do recommend new developers, right? If you're planning to develop your own game engine or any other application, right? What is the one thing that I recommend new developers? One thing that I would recommend you guys to take into account is this: is that if you're going to develop, if you're going to learn a new language, right? Keep in mind that learning the syntax of that language does not make you a programmer, does not make you a developer, right? Does not make you an engineer. Like, I sincerely think that anyone can learn at the syntax of a new language in a weekend. I mean, you give me a new language and I can learn the syntax literally in a day, because learning the syntax is simple, right? What you need to focus on as a new developer is understanding algorithms, right? Understanding when to use a stack or a heap, understanding, a binary tree or a generic tree, when to use that, understanding the design patterns, right? When to use the MVC, when to use a singleton, when to use the strategy design patterns, and a bunch of design patterns that are out there. Understanding when to use that and when not to use that, understanding algorithms is what you need to focus on. That is what's going to make you a great developer. Learning the syntax is nothing, all right? Like learning the syntax is just like learning the alphabet for a writer, but not because you know the alphabet does not mean that you're going to become a great writer or that you can even write a book, right? That's the analogy that I like to use. Syntax is just like the alphabet, but if you want to really write a book, you need to understand how to captivate your audience, and to do that would be to like, you know, really have a good understanding of the language, right? And the whole psychology behind how to captivate an audience. Same thing for development or engineering. You need to focus on the algorithms and the design patterns so that you can create scalable and flexible and modular applications, right? That is something that you need to focus on. And you know, something that unfortunately when I go on Twitter, I see stuff like, I don't even want to say that, but I don't know, stupidity. I'm sorry. But you know, that's something that I want you guys to keep in mind. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is this, right? How do you approach failure, or how do I approach failure? How I approach failure, guys, is this. My idea is this, right? That even if I fail, I will have a great story to tell, right? Even if I fail in my game engine development, I have a great story to tell, right? I have something to tell to people. I have something to share with people. Like, for example, how to develop one, what books helped me develop a game engine, right? What steps did I try? Why did I fail, right? And that information is gold, right? Because you can share that with people. You can share that with people on your YouTube channel, right? And if you connect with people, your channel may actually grow, because you know you'll understand, and you know, like the problems that people may face, right? Because you were there, right? For example, if I had never started a blog, because I was afraid of failure, I would have not a, I wouldn't have a story to tell with you, on sharing with you, hey, start a blog because you may get some opportunities from companies, right? Look what has been happening to me. It has been great, right? So same thing, right? And that's why I'm starting my YouTube channel. That's why I'm here. I'm doing live streams too, right? I'm learning this. Uh, you know, is my channel gonna grow to 1 million subscribers? I do not know, but it would definitely not get there if I don't try, right? So who knows? One day I may go or do another live stream and share with you guys, look, this is how not to start a YouTube channel, and this is how to do one, right? So, you know, approach failure just like that. That even if you fail, you will have a great story to tell, right? You can go to a bar and share your stories, right? With people, and people will listen and they will like you, and you know, you make connections with people, and that's great. So that's how you do it, man. Even if you fail, you will have a great story to tell. All right, guys. Like I said, this was gonna be a live stream mainly where I was gonna answer some questions. I hope you learned something from this. And my goal was not to do any coding today at all, because I need to think about stuff that I want, where I want to take my game engine. Do I want to add deep learning to my game engine? Do I want to take my game engine into different directions? I do not know. I'm still debating stuff. I'm reading this book. I'm doing little experiments using Python just to get the hang of deep learning. I need to do some research on Core ML, which is the framework that Apple provides for deep learning algorithms. Machine learning. So I'm still in deciding where do I take my game engine next, right? I also been even thinking of making my game engine an educational game engine. Maybe I'll go that route. I do not know yet, but it definitely will have that answer soon, and I will share that with you as well. All right, guys, thank you so much. And I guess I'll see you next time, most likely on Thursday. And hopefully I have an answer and we can do some coding that day. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you next time.